Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second MyACT, live from the heart of the Cannes Lions. We are very happy to be here today on the Croisette for second day, beautiful day. I'm here with Thomas Kolster, who will co-host with me today.
Such a pleasure again being back here in Cannes, right? On a lovely sunny day.
On a lovely sunny day, but we are inside, and you made a point that you prefer being outside.
At least I don't need to wear sunglasses. That's
yeah,
that's
we can see your nice eyes.
Exactly. No red eyes today.
So, Thomas, we have three wonderful guests this morning. Do you want to introduce those guests?
Exactly. We have three wonderful guests from three quite different organizations. So we have Susan Machtiger. I said that I wouldn't butcher the name. I'm so sorry. Who's the president from Ogilvy Consulting North America. We have Philippe Paget from CEO. He's the CEO of AdForum. And we have Jennings, who is head of corporate responsibility at Ascential, which is sort of Cannes Lions, I can say that, right? So welcome to all three of you, and thank you so much for joining us at this second ACT Responsible Live. And let's kick off with you, Susan, because obviously tons of agencies, media, et cetera here, and there's more and more focus on the responsibility of agencies today here in Cannes. So can you maybe share a little bit about how you incorporate sort of responsibility across the business?
Okay, sure, I'd love to. Actually, all of Ogilvy's purpose is to inspire brands and people to impact the world. So with that kind of a very ambitious purpose, sort of almost everything we do, we need to think about that and look at that. Within Ogilvy Consulting, we have a specialized practice around sustainability. And we have worked with a huge range of clients from very large global corporates to big ag to smaller, very eco-warrior companies, help sort of frame how they're going to bring sustainability to life. So the way we do that is really first start with their commitments, what they have. If they need to sharpen their ambitions, we help them do that in a way that is true to who they are, credible, and with integrity, and then look at all of their activities, pull it together, and so that we start with some kind of an idea or a thought or a singular platform. Because most companies do lots of little things, but they don't quite think about how they all sort of add up. And then also once we help them add it up to something that's a larger impact, then actually really think about how all of their businesses contribute to that. So many times, you'll have a large company making big commitments, but actually their individual business units are not really doing what they can to contribute to those commitments. So again, it really is sort of pulling it all together, large, ambitions, and then ensuring that everything they do begins to ladder up to that. So that's sort of a strategic start. Of course, then it becomes creative and has to come to life in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I did notice that it said consulting behind Ogilvy. So does sustainability demand a more integrated approach? It's not just an advertising side of the business?
Actually, for sure, because it has to come to life, of course, in earned, right? In almost every aspect of how a company is out there in the world. And actually is often more credible, not in ads, right? Yeah. So, whether it's actions or other things that can be designed. But first we sort of lay the strategic foundation, because that's very important. And then think about what is the best way to, speak to, and again, many stakeholders. It may not be just consumers, it could be other stakeholders as well. And that's how you sort of decide whether it's ads or not ads, or other things, or other actions, or PR, or earned, or whatever, or social.
Yeah, and now you talked about ads, so let's maybe focus on that. That's also why we're here in Cannes, partly. But so how do you then integrate, and how do you then get sustainability into advertising? Because advertising doesn't really sound like the most sustainable thing in the first place.
Right. Yeah. No, great question. In most cases, because of sort of in a higher order platform that meant we do work with many of these companies to build, it is first almost putting it out there as a point of view, right? Because just, ads that, tell you things. I mean, there has to be some kind of a point of view that you're bringing to the world. So that platform thought should have a point of view, should reflect the ambition, and then that makes it much easier to then bring to life in specific ads and specific communications. But all of it, again, coming together into a larger point of view.
I have a question for you, Susan. Do you see in your in the different agencies, even at competitors, do you see I can't find my word. It's going to come. Your role.
Yeah.
Your role. Can you see it growing? Do you have peers in other agencies? Do you exchange with them? Do you share good practices? How does that work? Or do you feel a bit alone? Or sometimes you don't have the answer? I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I think we are seeing more and more sustainability practices show up at almost every agency, actually, and certainly at the holding company level and within all of that. I think there is less sharing and community in a formal way within the advertising community. I think it happens more informally, and I think the people that are in that practice do get together. For example, there are events like Sustainable Brands that just had a big conference in Minneapolis. So, I mean, there are places where everyone does come together, but I think that could only, more and more, would only be better, because then the community has strength, it can be galvanized, it can create more collective action. And one of the things we know about sustainability is on the client side, the way a lot of issues have been tackled is by coming together within an industry. So for example, palm oil was tackled because P&G and Unilever, competitors, came together, right? Same thing with plastics. You saw Coke and Dr. Pepper and Pepsi coming together, to have a point of view on plastic. So to the extent that clients are coming together, so should, agency and community come together.
I think that's an active encouragement from Susan to all of you. SDG number 17, I think it is, collaboration. So I think we need to be better at that, and that's also why it's good to be in Cannes, right?
Yeah, and actually a great link to Martha. Martha, you joined a few months ago the organization with this big role of heading the sustainability agenda for Ascential, for the Cannes Lions, but also for the other shows. I think it is for you also a challenge, and we talked about it because there's not so many places where we can exchange and talk about it with the others. That's what ACT has been doing for 20 years, or 21 years. At the Cannes Lions, we're trying to create that moment where people can talk. With a new eye coming in this organization, how can we ensure that sustainability will stay and will become or will stay a priority?
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me. So I've been at Ascential for 3 years, but have just started working with our events brands. And what I've seen really change over those 3 years, working with all the brands that make up Ascential, is the conversation has moved from, yeah, this is important, but it's not a priority today, to this is a priority, but we don't know what we can do. And that's really exciting opportunity for me to come in, because I can really help and work with those brands to say, okay, what do we need to do? And coming to Lions, this is my first time here. It's such an incredible event, meeting with my amazing colleagues who have such passion for what they do, such creativity, such attention to detail, such care for the customers and clients, that there is so much there to leverage and turn all of that to the topic that we need it to turn to, which is climate change, and how do we make this a more sustainable event? How do we make this a more sustainable sector? How do we play our part in this huge global crisis? And so I think in terms of making it a business priority, it's lots of conversations. It's conversations internally with our leadership, with our directors, with our colleagues about what they want to do and how they can do it, how that aligns with business priority. It's conversations with the sector, which is where events like this are brilliant for bringing everyone together, exactly as Susan said. Bringing everyone together, how can we make it the agenda? How can we really work out what the priorities are? And then what's our priorities for our customers and our clients and our partners, and how do we... So I definitely see my role over the next few months as having a lot of conversations and finding out all of that information about what everyone else is doing. How can we learn from that? How can we bring that together? And how can we have a bigger impact when we all work together?
And can you tell us what are the focus, your first focus, or the leadership first focus? I met with Phil earlier. I know that Simon is also driving the change, so they're convinced.
The CEO and the chairman of Cannes Lions.
Of Cannes Lions, sorry. What are the first big focus that you are going to start? Where are you going to start?
So I'm probably starting in the place that's kind of quite boring and behind the scenes, but is essential, I think, for us to get the strategy right, which is carbon footprinting the event. Because without that data and without really knowing where our emissions are lying in terms of our operations here, we can't make a sustainable roadmap to net zero, we can't set our reduction targets, and we can't go big on our strategy. So my first focus is on that, on the data, on what's the data telling us about what our emissions are and where we can do more to reduce them. And from there, I will be developing our kind of sustainability charter around what does sustainable events look like for Ascential, what's the benchmark, what does good look like. And from there, we will roll it out across all of our events and hopefully roll it out across the events industry more broadly, working in partnership with anyone and everyone who wants to come along for the ride with us. But I read a great article once that said sustainability is 1,000 boring steps. And I feel like I'm at the beginning of some of those boring steps, which is around, you know, the data and the emissions. But getting that right is really critical for us.
Do you have? Can you share with the viewers who is advising you, who's helping you on that? Because you're not like creating all that together alone. So
No.
You're using tools and I think this is important to share so we can share back.
Sure. So yeah, having the right partners on this is absolutely critical. I sort of see my role as convening the right partners. So we've got two great partners with us at the moment. So working with an organisation called ILA, who are a UK non-profit specialising in sustainable events. And we are working with them on the carbon footprinting and on setting our strategy. We've also been working with Native, which is a US non-profit, around offsetting our jury and staff flights. And they have got some really interesting carbon offset projects around investing in projects that not only provide renewable energy, but also impact the communities in which they operate. So those are two that I'm really excited about to start with, but there will be lots more coming.
And you're learning every
hour.
hour. That's what's good about sustainability, right? When you start taking the route, you're learning and learning and learning every day.
I mean, you talk about, and I love that framing, 1,000 boring steps, because I think it's absolutely the sort of right way of saying it, because it's difficult. It's a difficult thing, and it's a continuous journey towards the goal. That being said, obviously we're here. I mean, I grew up in the creative industry. I've been here, I think, 25 years in a row right now, from a young creative to today. And in so many ways, Cannes Lions as a festival and your other festivals around the world are really aspirational. I mean, it's the highlight of many people's career. It can change your career. So how can you use those aspirations to drive change and maybe not make it 1,000 boring steps, but 1,000 exciting steps for our industry to take?
Yeah, I think that's what's really exciting. And just attending a couple of sessions yesterday around creativity, I walked out inspired, and I don't necessarily work day to day in this space. So I am so excited about what we can do when we get those creative heads together on this topic. I think maybe what's been missing from Cannes is that opportunity to really bring people together, to really think about this together as a collective. You know, exactly as Susan said, one of the really exciting things about working in this space is that there isn't competition. We need to work together to make this a success. And so bringing all of that creativity together. There's some great sessions on this week already, starting to think about that, talking about that. We've got some brilliant speakers addressing that. There were some sessions yesterday. There's lots more in the week, but we want to do more. And we want to do more of that, and we want to bring people together more around this topic, which I think is the exciting opportunity, because we have seen the advertising industry exactly as your display here shows, and the work that Act Responsible shows is that when the industry comes together around topics, they can create real change. And we've seen that in so many different ways, and now we can really think about it on climate.
I'm just going to, how do you say, rebondir on it, bounce on it, to go to creativity and Act Responsible 20 years ago with my good friend Philippe Paget. Philippe has been is the CEO of AdForum. AdForum is where ACT was born 21 years ago after 9/11. Posting on the website just a call saying it ACT advertising community together. It's our business to help, and we collected the advertising from all around the world, and we were convinced then that creativity was the tool and the key to change. Do you want to tell us?
I'm still convinced that creativity can change the world, and it has already changed it. I mean, to bounce back on what Susan was saying, and we saw in the last 15 years an amazing change in the advertising industry. It used to be only to carry a message, to make people consume more of anything. Fortunately, many initiatives, I guess your initiatives helped the world as understand that you can do this business, you can be in the advertising industry, still fulfill your client needs, but also promote responsible attitude. And creativity is the weapon, is the energy, the power of all this. Because you can have the best intention in the world, if you're unable to communicate it, to advocate it for it, it won't work. So the creative people are the amazing people that have the talent to touch the heart of the people, the consumers, by changing the narratives, the way they are telling the story about consumptions, I think is really important, by educating consumers and the good way to. I don't think consumers are bad by essence. They don't want to eat fat and they're just influenced by they were influenced and still are by some attitude, and creativity can change that, and that's extraordinary. So we saw the agency change the way they were using creativity, and their role within brands have totally changed. They're not only the message crafter, they are now the transformer. They are the one that are helping the brands to go to this transformation, to be responsible. And it's tough because brands, by essence, they are here to make products and sell products. And how do we educate them to do that in a very responsible way? And agency, especially big, collaborative agency, I think legacy group like yours, aligned with new tech brands or new tech agencies, are now working together to create campaigns, or more than campaigns, to create action that actually goes in that direction. That's creativity is no more only the big idea. It's a full process that has to be embedded from the beginning of the reflection of a campaign to the end of the execution. And it has changed, and we saw in the award shows how the categories have changed. How it's a tough job now to have an award, because for the jurors they have to go much more 360. Not only look at the posters and say, hey, this is great, this is beautiful, but what's behind it, and that's really amazing.
I think that's fascinating to hear, and I think it's also an encouragement to all creatives. When I grew up in the industry, it was about creating print ads and outdoor. Today, creativity is really about reinventing everything in the name of sustainability. But obviously, you touched a little bit in the elephant in the room here, which is obviously sustainability and advertising. It seems a bit schizophrenic, and I know that we are in time of financial instability, uncertainty, yet advertising in many eyes are sort of pushing consumption. I think it's very documented at actually creating growth. So how can we as an industry sort of tackle and rethink some of those difficult questions as well?
Well, I believe Yeah, uncertainty is here, but it's here to stay. I mean, I don't believe. I think maybe it was an utopia afterward that the thing that the world would be stable and good growth will be solving all the problems. We see it was the contrary. We need to change that, and this schizophrenic now has been. I think it has been embedded in a lot of the reflection of the team. They understand that okay, you need to produce. For producing for the humanity, you need to pollute. So how do we do that in the best way? How do we consume what we need and the best thing, the quality versus the quantity? And it still makes a good profit and margin for everyone. I think there is space for everyone to grow. And I think what is more difficult today is kind of the north and south problems. I mean, the challenge we are facing in the Western countries and things are totally different than the one that are facing new and very young continent like Africa or India. And we are in advance, but that's why we need to show the way. We need to show the example. And every time there is a new campaign, with a collaborative with the agencies in those countries, it's changed. And because they are a young country, they can change the attitude much more easy maybe than us all countries. So yes, there is a kind of schizophrenic, but we have to embed it into our reflection at every stage. And advertising is still so important. If you have a good product tomorrow, you curate something new, innovative, good. I mean, you need to make it known. I mean, people need to know the product exists, that you can afford it, you can buy it, and how you can educate people to use it. So there's still a lot of need for communication, and that's where we need the creativity to be at the peak.
I absolutely love that point, because I think one of the things that Cannes Lions does is, in fact, that it gathers a global community. There's a lot of representation from the global south as well. So in that sense, there can be that exchange in terms of what's needed. Maybe just to wrap this up, just with a question to all three of you. Because we've been talking about sustainability for quite some years now. And I think the urgent call from the UN and the latest climate report is obviously that we should have acted yesterday, and today it might be too late to avoid some of the worst of the climate catastrophes that we're already seeing impacting. So through those years you worked in sustainability, any good advice you can leave our industry with? To wrap this up, Susan?
Yeah, sure. There's one killer fact that hopefully will inspire where we need creativity, which is 92% of people say they want to live a more sustainable life. Only 16% want to change their behavior or know even what to do. So that's this huge gap that requires not just creativity, but also deep human insight, behavioral science, all of the things that will help close that gap between intention and action. Because that's, I think, why, I mean, it's not just having people believe the sustainability is good, it's actually motivating them to act on it and change behavior. That's what's going to make a difference.
Such a big question. It kind of reminds me of this anecdote of, I think it was the first time Hilton, the creator of the Hotel Hilton, was interviewed on TV in America. And it was one of the first interviews on TV live. And the reporter asked him, do you have a message for America? And he thought, and he said, yes, put the curtain of the shower inside the tub. Well, maybe maybe it was still already about, not spoiling the water. I mean, that's important. No, it's just a joke. But sustainability, I don't have any specific advice about that. And I think people are now very well aware. As you say, it's one thing is to be aware, one thing is to be ready to change. It's true that for the young generation, they're all about sustainability, but they still are using their phone like madmen and traveling. And how do we change that without making it boring? And that's the biggest problem of sustainability campaign, I think. But we see it's changing, but we need to make it appealing, fun, and exciting, not something restricting, boring, and frustrating. That's the biggest challenge.
I think, just to add to that, I think if you look at all of the research that's being done around sort of climate change and psychology and what's preventing people from taking that action, a lot of it is fear. When people are afraid, they retreat into themselves. It's a very kind of biological symptom, and they stop taking action. So the opportunity is to make it feel achievable, to inspire people about actually what a future, carbon zero world could look like. And if people are inspired about what the future could be and they know how to take action, I feel like they will do the necessary. And that's the opportunity for the advertising industry, because we know the creativity at the heart of this does change behavior. And so it's about selling the future in a really positive way and maybe switching some of the fear off a bit, which prevents action, and coming up with those inspirational opportunities for people.
I think that was some really good insights we get in this panel today. Make it aspirational, use creativity as a driver, and how creativity can now embrace not just print and advertising, but we can actually rethink the whole model, rethink business models. I think is a good thing. I think, Susan, you had a really good point about the gap and the potential, the 91 to the 6 or 16? 16%, yes, and how we as agencies and brands can help narrow that gap. And obviously the last point, I think, around collaboration is a really good end point. That's why we're here in Cannes, is to collaborate and exchange. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Philippe. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Thomas. Collaboration, I'm just going to say one word about tomorrow. Tomorrow, we invite everyone to collaborate and come and visit the ACT Responsible Hall de Bussy.
We got Open House for Good, right?
Open House for Good. Yeah, Open House for Good. Everyone, all the creative here in Cannes, there's this amazing exhibition. You can come when you don't have a badge. The Cannes Lions have agreed to open the doors of the Palais to make for the first trade show opening to everyone, so to have this inclusive moment and invite everyone to come in. So we will be there.
Fantastic ads, right? All around the Palais that everybody can come and see without a fancy badge.
Without a fancy badge. And I would like to thank the supporters of MyACT AdForum, of course, the media leader who is helping us to broadcast the show, the IAA France, Euronews, and Accor Hotel. We were live, and we will also have a replay posted tonight on our social media, and that we will share with all of you. Thank you for being there. See you tomorrow at 11 and then at 2 o'clock for Open House for Good.
Exactly. Thank you. See you tomorrow.